Nah, Pastor, it's Dr. Pepper's zero time. Because it's just better. Pepsi's nasty. Well, good evening, everyone. I just realized that my second camera wasn't up and running, so there we go. And this is the burden of doing things live, just constantly just not having it set up and ready. All right. Oh no, so there's a contest now. Who's going to be first here? Oh, yep. Caleb was ready. Caleb jumped the gun and was ready to be live. Evening, Joseph. Well, Kanawha County Schools is on remote tomorrow. I saw Putnam County was, it's on the old Facebook. I think they're just a traditional snow day, so they are not. All right, so it's not a non-traditional. So they've got no work to do tomorrow. So teachers are off. Thankfully, in Kanawha County, we have the opportunity to keep it safe, do virtual work. But we're doing fine here. It's pretty snowy out. Last I checked, I went out to film a video for my students to prep them for tomorrow. And we're just trying to stay warm. See, Patrick's here. So we got the Severns. We got the Carts watching. All of them. Caleb, Sam. I know Sam's probably listening. Patrick's here. Joseph. So, I feel like it's been forever since we've done an episode, but I've also done so many like live streams for the Nazarene Church. I've been in just talks with. I spoke to a pastor up at Dunbar Mountain Mission, and he had mentioned seeing our Holy Grounds podcast. So if you haven't gotten a chance to watch that, give it a watch. We are taking a week off, and we're filming the next episode this Saturday. And yeah, it's been a long week. Like today was the first full day back, with no delays, nothing in Kanawha County, and felt like we hadn't been in school for months. And I saw that somebody made a joke on the internet. It was like, we've experienced 4 months of January. I have a cult following. Well, listen. If I just had to hang out with the people that are in this video right now, I'd be content with life. Because I'd have all the people that I need. Wife's in the other room. Got you all. Got my Bibles. I'm good. I'm good. As the song says, I'm satisfied. All right? So, we have a verse of the day. Grab your Bibles. Turn with me to Psalm 59, verse 16. Psalm 59, 16. Give you a chance to get there. Give you a second. All right. Psalm 59:16. We're doing this one out of the New King James. And Psalm 59:16 reads, "But I will sing of your power. Yes, I will sing aloud of your mercy in the morning. For you have been my defense and my refuge in the day of my trouble." Pretty good verse to start off today. Pretty powerful. And the verse 17 finishes it off with, "To you, O my strength, I will sing praises, for God is my defense, my God of mercy." It's a really good verse to start off with. Start out of the little, what is this? I got that upside down. This is my Humble Lamb Bible. I love this thing. Beautiful. Well, I got my trusty Bibles off to the side here. Got New American, King James, New Revised, New King James. Got a lot to talk about today. We're talking about recreation today. The post-flood story and how it mirrors creation and how we have this really complex story going on here. All right? So we need to turn to Genesis. So grab your Bibles. I hope you still got your Bibles with you. But we are going to be in Genesis today, just like last week. And we are going to be reading chapters 8 and parts of chapter 9. All right. So let's read together, and I've got notes all over the place. So if I don't see people's comments right away, I do apologize. All right. So let's read Genesis, all of chapter 8, and then parts of chapter 9. And I'm reading this out of the New American Standard. So Genesis chapter 8, beginning at verse 1. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark, and God caused a wind to pass over the earth. And the waters subsided, and also the fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky was restrained. And the water receded steadily from the earth, and at the end of 150 days the water decreased. In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat. The water decreased steadily until the 10th month. And in the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. Then it came about at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent out a raven, and it flew here and there until the water was dried up from the earth. And then he sent out a dove from him, to see if the water was abated from the face of the earth. But the dove found no resting place for the sole of her foot, so she returned to him into the ark, for the water was on the surface of all the earth. Then he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark to himself. So he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent out the dove from the ark. The dove came to him towards the evening, and behold, in her beak was a freshly picked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the water was abated from the earth. Then he waited yet another 7 days, and sent out the dove, and she did not return to him again. Now it came about in the 601st year, in the 1st month, and on the 1st of the month, the water was dried up from the earth. Then Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the surface of the ground was dried up. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God spoke to Noah, saying, Go out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may breed abundantly on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth, went out with their families from the ark. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean animal and every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. The Lord smelled the smoothing aroma, and the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth, and I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. All right, we're going to stop right there. And again, if you're reading out of a different translation, feel free to comment some differences that you read and that may but may add or allow us to dive deeper into this. So, the first connection to creation here, before I even get to my notes, all right? And it's the first thing in my notes. I've noticed your translation referred to the dove as a female pronoun, whereas the NASB refers to it as it. Okay, I think you're reading out of the 2020 NASB because this is a New American, but this is the 95. So I did not know that was a change that the 2020 did. Interesting. Caleb, does the King James refer to the dove as a female dove? I know you're probably got your King James with you, so let me know. All right. So let's see. So the first thing I want to point out, and I've got to go get my pen. Should have had all this stuff out before we started, but I'm not gonna lie, I walked in here like 5 minutes before we started. So yeah, Pastor Bill, I think your NASB is the 2020, mine's the 95. All right, so the first thing I want to point out here in chapter 8 is the part where it reads, but God, so after it says, God remembered Noah and the beasts and the cattle that were with him, and God caused a great wind, or a wind. So we have God and a wind. NIV says it. Okay, cool. Making both and holding baby. Can't check now in the King James. Okay. Okay, we'll check the King James. So let's do a check real quick. Caleb is tending to his child, which is good. Okay. Okay, King James refers to this dove as she. All right. So that's a good question of why the NASB 2020 refers to it as it. If it does refer to the dove as female, isn't it interesting that the females have a track record for being the first to share good news? Shout out to Mary Magdalene later on. Patrick thinking. All right, back to, mine says she as well. Okay, yeah, so Patrick, yours is the 95. I remember when I bought that one for you, I made sure it was the 95. Pastor, I believe I saw the NASB and it was like the only one on the shelf at the time. All right, back to this over here. So the first thing we see, God and a wind. So if we flip back to Genesis 1:1, or sorry, just Genesis chapter 1, all right? So, and the earth was formless and void, and darkness was on the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the water. Now, the reason I am bringing this up is because I know that some translations, and I believe the New Revised Standard is one of them, so I'm going to stick to the New Revised. Pastor, that red Bible I gave you, the New Oxford one is New Revised, so it probably says the same thing. Okay, so here's what the New Revised Standard says, and this is my Wesley Study Bible. So this is Genesis 1:1, or Genesis chapter 1, okay? And you'll notice in verse 2, and the earth was formless, void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. A wind from God, all right? And then we go back over here to Genesis chapter 8, and we have God caused a wind to pass over the earth. All right, and the waters subsided. So now, when we get from the waters subsided all the way to the end of verse 3, the water subsided, the fountains of the deep and the floodgates, the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky was restrained. So this is our nice little callback. Then God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. The skies were closed, the fountains of the deep, the waters subsided, and the waters decreased. So here is our parallel to day 1 and day 2. Mine says Spirit of God instead of wind. Okay. So the 20, is that out of your New American? See, this is why we use this multiple translation process. But let me see what the New Revised says. So this is chapter 8. So the New Revised says, and God made a wind blow over the earth. Let's check King James. 2020 gave me. Okay. So the King James reads, God made a wind to pass over the earth. So this, now, I know in Genesis 1, most translations read, so pulling back to King James here, I just need to keep this thing open. So the King James reads, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. All right, I think, like I said, the New Revised says a wind from God. So, Pastor, you're reading out of the 2020. I've got a 2020 right here. Actually, this one's bulky, so we will get out the one that Pastor John gave me. It's 2020 as well. Yeah, almost every other translation reads Spirit of God right here at the beginning in Genesis. But the comparison I wanted to say is some translations use that word wind right here. All right, so there's this nice call forward to Genesis chapter 8. All right, let's pull my notes. So the key parallels between creation and the flood. So the first one, watery chaos. In creation, God separates the waters above from the waters below to create dry land. The flood revises this as the fountains of the deep and the windows of heaven open, bringing back the watery, chaotic, and formless state from Genesis 1:2. Right? And then we also talked about spirit and wind. So in Genesis 1, the Spirit of God moves over the waters. In the flood story, a wind, or the word ruach, I think that's how you pronounce it. Got to put a little phlegm in there. Ruach, also meaning spirit. It is sent by God to make the water subside, bringing order out of chaos. So with Genesis, with this part of Genesis being as literal as possible, there are some people argue that the flood account is, just regional. Some people argue that it's one of those parts that's just in the Bible. Well, no, we believe this to be true as Christians. Like, you have to believe that the flood story is real. So and it says the waters covered the whole earth. So the earth is in chaos again. It's a formless void, because when you think about underneath the ocean, it's a void. We don't know what's under the water. So we get back to that formless void, and as the waters are separated, we start to see order come out of chaos. Now, let's move on. So now we get to the ark resting on the mountains of Ararat. So this is where we get dry land. And the water decreased steadily until the 10th month, and the tops of the mountains became visible. So now, this is day 1 and 2. So now we get day 3, which is the dry land. I'm here. I've made it. Noah's here. Oh, sweet, Noah. You're a little bit behind. We're in Genesis 8 comparing the flood, the end of the flood, to creation. All right. So we have day 3 here. This is all of the dry land suddenly coming out. Now, when we get to the part about the raven and the dove, we now get the accounts of the creature. Now, the creatures of the sea, I guess we can say that obviously the creatures of the sea did not need to be on the ark because of the waters. So we get the creatures of the water already there. He sends out a raven, then he sends out a dove. Okay, all the creatures of the skies. So we have the creatures of the sea and the creatures of the sky meeting up right here when we talk about the raven and the dove. All right, but the dove found no resting place. So dry land doesn't appear until day 3. So now we get dry land, day 3. So, making sure I get this right. Hang on. Okay, so I am ahead of a little bit when it comes to the creatures. Um, Apologies, had a 2-hour lecture from one of my classes right in the middle of dinner and work, but I'm focused now. It's good that Noah showed up for the story about the ark. Without him, we wouldn't be much of a story. Yeah, all right, I'm getting ahead of myself when it comes to the birds. So forget everything I just said. All right. Now, once the dry land is appearing, now we jump forward, and it says now we could talk about the 7 days thing here, and I think I've got something in my notes. So recreation of life. Just as land animals were created on the 6th day, land animals and humans emerged from the ark to repopulate the earth. So that's where I was getting to next. All right, making sure I got to stay on notes here, even though I'm not used to doing notes for this live stream. So we get to the part where God. Now, our imagery of the ark a lot of times is incorrect. See, Noah didn't make a door for him to shut. God shut the ark for Noah. And it just says that he released the dove from the window which he had made, just a window. Oftentimes, especially last week when we saw that imagery from the Bible series on the History Channel, Noah walks out onto this deck. I don't necessarily think that there was a place for Noah to walk out. It wasn't a cruise ship. It wasn't luxury. This ship had no sail. It had no rudder. The person steering it was God. Noah and his family were meant to stay inside and let God take control. Now, there's some imagery for our relationship with God. When we come into a relationship with Christ, we don't set the sail. Christ is our captain in this sense. God was the captain of this ship. So that imagery with Christ, when we get to our relationship and we go through the vast void of life with Christ, and God was with Noah, we have security. The ark didn't crash. It says the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. God made sure that this boat didn't crash into the side of a mountain. It didn't scrape some mountaintops underneath of it. No, it rested on the mountains of Ararat. The wording there is absolutely perfect. All right? And the ark only had one door, one way in, and then eventually one way out. Okay? We have one way into heaven. One way. And Jesus says that. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus is the door of the ark. Right? There's only one way in. And inside the ark is eternal rest with God. Eternal security. Right? Knowing that God is in full control. Now, he has this window, which I'm sure he was instructed to make, to allow the dove to go free. Now, it doesn't have to be. It could be a window the size of this one out here. It could be a window that was no bigger than my phone so he can slip the dove through. All right? It doesn't say. A window is very vague of that. Don't mind your mother. Do a VHS on that theme. With God being the wind in your sails. Hasn't she? Why do I feel like she has before? I don't know. I'll have to ask her about that. That's a good idea, Joseph. All right. So now we get to the new Adam. So Noah is viewed as a new Adam, not the last Adam like Jesus is. He's a new Adam, receiving the same blessing and commandment to be fruitful and multiply. And that is where we get to Genesis chapter 9. So everyone, let's turn back to Genesis chapter 9. And let's read just a little bit. So Genesis chapter 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, right here, All right. So we're just going to read that much. This is all God speaking right here. So God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." So this is a direct relation to Genesis 1:28. "The fear of you and the terror of you will be on every beast of the earth." So we have some, I want to word this properly, some changes here, a little bit different. So now we have the fear of you and the terror of you will be on every beast of the earth. All right. And every bird of the sky, with everything that creeps on the ground, all of the fish of the sea, in your hand they are given. So we have a little bit of change here from the command in Genesis. All right. So God created man in his own image. So God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over every living thing that moves on the earth." He just says rule over them. Then God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of the earth, and every tree which is fruit yielding seed. It shall be food for you." And here he says, with everything that creeps on the ground and all of the fish of the sea, in your hand they are given. Every moving thing that is alive shall be food for you. So here's the difference. Every moving thing that is alive shall be food for you. I give all to you as I gave the green plant. So God calls back to Genesis 1:28, but it's a little bit different here. So now we have the original call to be fruitful and multiply, but now because of the sin of the world, so this is the result of the fall and no Garden of Eden. All right, so this is where things change just a little bit. God hasn't changed his mind. Okay, we're still in plan A. Okay, everything that is going on, God has seen through. All right, so we now have this new covenant, I guess you could say, that has a bit of the old sprinkled in it. All right, so only you shall not eat flesh with its life. Okay, so he's given animals as a means of food, but not flesh with its life, its blood. Surely I will require your lifeblood. From every beast I will require it, and from every man's brother I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by the man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. As for you, be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly, and multiply in it. So, here is a callback to the first murder with Cain and Abel. So, whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood be shed. All right. Let me go to the comments. Okay. KJV says replenish instead of fill. Yeah. So I've hang on. Let me see, because there's a pastor out of White Pine, Tennessee, Scott Ingram. Okay, he's a pastor at Omega Baptist Church in White Pine, Tennessee, and he has done some comparisons between the King James and the New King James. I believe the New King James says fill as well instead of replenish. So the New King James says fill, and he has a video on it. I'm looking at his channel right now. There's Ecclesiastes. There's the one on Chronicles. There's Genesis 22. I know he's done it because I've watched it. There's Ephesians, Exodus. He's gone all over the place with it. It's It's really good stuff. Lord have mercy. Let me check his playlist. Discussing of modern versions. Answering the difference between the King James and the New King James. Here's his full playlist. This is the great thing about doing things live. There's 1 Corinthians. Genesis 1:1. Lord of mercy. I'm going to send you guys a link to him. I know he has done it. Matthew, gone to Leviticus. Okay, there's Genesis 2:7, which we're not there. I know he did that one. Oh, lordy, lordy. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy a link to his playlist. So there's a playlist that you can check all of his similarities and stuff between the King James and the New King James. King James says replenish. Okay. I would prefer the word replenish because it implies that it has been filled before. You know, I like the word replenished. New American says replenished. I don't know the translation choice there. Again, I'm no biblical scholar. You know, I'm just some redneck with a YouTube channel. Chapter 11, verse 9. New Revised says fill as well. There, if you look up the reason for the word fill versus replenish, there's a reason for it. And I agree. Like, I would prefer replenish because I think the word replenish in the King James is used. So in Genesis 1:1, you know, the word fill is used again. All right. I think it's the same language used here. So Genesis 1:28, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Okay, so fill, when it comes to Adam, you know, there was no population on the earth, so God commanded them to fill it. But in Genesis 1:28 in the King James, so King James, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. All right? So it says replenish in the King James with Adam. So I like the word replenish should be in chapter 8, but replenish probably shouldn't be in chapter 1. Because what is there to replenish? All right? So that word means to fill up. All right. So even in Noah's time, replenish should be the word in our modern understanding of the word replenish, but in the 1611 or in this case the 1769 word, the use of replenish here, or even just in ancient Hebrew context, it means to fill up. All right. So in Adam's case and in Noah's case, you know, they're the only family. Him and Eve are the only family. So their job is to fill the earth. So, yeah, in our modern understanding, replenish probably should be the word used in King James and modern translations here in verse 8 or chapter 8, but maybe in every translation, maybe it should be fill instead of replenish in chapter 1. So the King James says replenish both times. Every other translation, I believe, says fill both times. There's an argument there. I like both for different reasons. Replenish is good for understanding that it is being filled again. Fill makes it truly feel like a restart, like he told Adam. There's some good understanding there, Noah. All right. What else do I got here? So we've got the dominion over the animals again. So both Adam and Noah are given authority over the animal kingdom, but Noah's is a little bit different here. All right. So the garden imagery, Noah planting a vineyard. We'll get to that in a few minutes. The number 7 is structured here. A couple times I wrote down. It's structured in both accounts: 7 days of creation, 7 days warning before the flood, 7 pairs of clean animals, and the ark resting on the seventh month. All right, so we have a reset here. All right, so here in some thematic connections, the word rest. So Noah's name means rest or comfort, echoing God's rest on the seventh day of creation, and also using the phrase when the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. The chaos was over, order had been restored, so the ark rested. All right. Adam is the head of first creation, while Noah is the mediator over a new covenant for a renewed earth. So, decreation and recreation, the flood is not merely destruction, but a necessary decreation to remove sin and a recreation to restore order. So, this is why, so sin is still in the world, right? Noah proves that, and even says, so God understands that sin is in man's heart from his youth, right? And like we're not back in Eden anymore. Paradise is lost to us here on earth. So Noah, born into sin, was a righteous man of his days, but he was still born into sin, and we still see that sinful nature creep up on him after when he plants the vineyard later. But there comes the point where Noah had to have the 7 clean animals of every kind to offer that sacrifice, and where God says, what is it? When Noah has to offer the sacrifice. So think back to Cain and Abel. Abel offers his best of his flock, while Cain offers the scraps of his field. All right. So Noah has to have that sacrifice that God requires of us. All right. Any comments? What in the world is this comment right here? I have no clue who this person is. I'd like to know who you are. Thank you for watching, but I'm trying to understand what this comment even says. Let's go to Google Translate. Okay. I am trying to understand this comment fully. It's Hebrew. Holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Okay. Go to channel. Okay. I like that. All right. So back to my notes. All right. So Noah is viewed as the new Adam, receiving the same blessing and commands to be fruitful and multiply. So this again, the callback to Genesis 1:28. So dominion over the animals. So the last thematic connections we have here. So Adam is the head of creation. Oh, I had read through all my notes. I didn't realize I didn't have to scroll down. Okay. All right. So says ChatGPT, Hebrew line. Oh, okay. Nice. It is a direct quote from Isaiah 6:3. Nice. Okay, sweet. All right. So, let me, oh, wrong button. There we go. Hit a text talk. Okay. So, where does this lead us? So, got off track there for a second. I'm sorry. I love seeing these connections here. And it's amazing that even when God wipes off man the face of the earth, in his plan to restore, you know, Adam or Noah wasn't meant to be the last man. He was meant to be the next man. All right. So this thematic connection back to creation, that God continues to work the same as always. He is the same yesterday and today and tomorrow. So even in this new covenant that is being restored on earth, he still does a callback to creation. And I like in most um, visual representations, and Caleb, I know you're going to hate this, even in the movie Noah or in the History Channel's version of the Bible, Noah is seen telling the story of creation to his kids while on the ark. And I like that. So there's that oral representation of this creation account that Noah had been told himself. So Noah knew the story of creation. And if I'm not mistaken, hang on. So it's the Adams timeline chart. So I think Adam lived long enough to have possibly met Noah. So could Adam have met Noah? That's not what I wanted there. So, based on a strict literal interpretation of Genesis genealogy, Adam died around. Now, they did not meet. However, Adam did live until the time of Noah's father Lamech, making it highly probable that Lamech knew Adam. Okay, so Noah's father probably could have known who Adam was and met him and probably heard the story of creation told from the man who was creation or was created out of creation. And now Noah being the next in line, so Adam passes away, and then you have this man whose name means rest or comfort is the next Adam in this sequence. And then his story is a retelling of the previous Adam. Right? Right, and you have to remember that the first form of the written communication didn't happen until about 3500 BCE or BC. So I love that we are able to put this idea of a story passed on through generations. Yeah. And the parallels of it are phenomenal. I love it. Pastor Bill, you're being awfully quiet. Oh, I didn't even see Noah's comment up here. ESV also says Phil. I'm late today. Okay. Noah, I was reading out the New American. I don't have an ESV sitting here with me. I think my ESV is sitting in my living room. But yeah, Pastor Bill, you're being awfully quiet. Caleb's probably dealing with a child right now. So I want to hear y'all's comments. I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this. Some parallels that you've seen, some similarities. What do you know? I'm soaking it all in a good, like, am I doing good? Am I doing something wrong? Did I say something wrong? Okay. I'm not perfect here, so call me out if I have to. I know Caleb would, in a good way. Love you, Caleb. Ugh. Again, soaking it all in. I literally like the idea of Noah's dad possibly knowing Adam. That's an awesome thought. Yeah, it like to like when you think of the ages in Genesis literally, which I believe, um, there is this amazing idea of knowing that how these people could have met. I think, and I might be wrong here, based on the biblical genealogies in Genesis, Noah lived for 350 years after the flood, dying at the age of 950. Most conservative chronologies indicate Noah died around 2006 or 2020 Anno Mundi, which means in the year of the world, so that's the Hebrew calendar, while Abraham was born around 2008 to 2018 AM. This suggests Noah died just shortly before or around the time of Abraham's birth. So, is there a chance that Abraham and Noah met? Probably not, because at this point the world was pretty spread out. But the fact that Noah could have met Abraham, a descendant of Seth, it's an interesting thing to think about. It's a really cool idea, knowing that these people could have met, which is why these stories, these oral traditions were passed down so well. It's really interesting to see this side of creation, down to Noah, especially after all the research I did for episode 2 in Scripture of Time, talking about creation and the world that existed at the time. If we lived to be that old, just imagine who we could have known in history. It's crazy. Even with such a populated world, and Noah could have lived to see several generations down, which means Noah would have been around at the time of the Tower of Babel, or alive for it. Even Abraham lived to be a really old man, even by today's standards. And that the last account we get of Ishmael is when Abraham dies, and Ishmael and Isaac are grown men at this point. That was a good one. I thought this one was pretty good. A little bit more historical on this side. So yeah, Noah's done an episode of Scripture and Time, and delved into this side of the world. I think there are 10 generations between Noah and Adam, which is really cool to think about. I can't even tell you my ancestor from the 10 generations ago unless I looked it up at Ancestry. Yeah. Neither could I. I could probably tell you back. So I've got, on my mom's side, I've got my mom, my grandpa, Danny Cart, and his dad, Okie Cart. That's about it. On my dad's side, you've got my grandpa Jim, my great grandfather Johns Hopkins Red, and I think my dad could probably tell you his dad, and that's about all I know. Part of me wonders how all of these people felt about Adam. Of course, he started the lineage, however, they would have known what happened in the garden. I don't know. I mean, how do we think of Adam? I mean, I'm sure at some point in your life you probably thought, it's like, man, when I get up to heaven and I see Adam, it's on sight. Okay? Because, yeah, this really gets me thinking. I thoroughly enjoyed this lesson tonight. Thank you, Pastor. I bet family dinners were awkward. Hey, Adam, why did you have to work the field today? Any ideas why? Yeah. That's funny. It's like, man, why do we work in the field today? It's like, because Dad screwed up. It's like, children, I want you to meet your great-great-great-great-grandfather, Adam. He is the reason we sweated today in the field. It's like, oh, thanks, Grandpa. Love it. But, again, I'm sure Adam carried this great burden with him because... So I just finished reading 2 books by this author. It's Christian fiction. It takes the stories of Noah and Enoch and kind of expands on them, keeping very biblical, but at the same time being pretty fictitious with the storytelling. At one point, Enoch and his tribe eventually get to meet Adam, and it always describes Adam as carrying this heavy burden, remembering paradise. So Adam probably carried a heavy burden with him because he and Eve were the only two to experience what true paradise was like on earth. And now they have to carry that weight with them all the way to death. So I think, so whose name in the Bible means long suffering? Is that Methuselah's name? Does okay? There's somebody in the Bible's name means long suffering. All right, he's the reason. Patrick, you didn't quote Taylor Swift on my live streams. How dare you? All right. Um, Adam had to carry a really heavy burden on him, and we could blame him, but at the same time, Adam had the same free will that we have today. We're just living with the consequences of our free will at this point because we have the free will to do what we want. And hopefully tonight, if you're listening to this, hopefully that free will is to follow Jesus Christ. All right? So we believe even in these stories, Jesus is still present. All right? He's the member of the Trinity, and we believe he was there this entire time. Yeah, Pastor, I enjoy this too, and I'm glad you do. Thank you all for your insights. This is what I love to see. I love to see this chat section just fill up. If you're new here, thank you for tuning in. Really enjoy having you guys in on all this stuff. It makes my life a little bit easier. But tonight we're going to end with one thing. I don't have my traditional ending queued up for tonight. How do you know that the Hebrew word for ark is also used for coffin? Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. All right, so not a traditional ending tonight, but I want to leave you with the blessing that God, or the promise, blessing too, the promise that God left for Noah, and every time that we look up to the sky after a summer rainy day. Because at this point right now, listen, I love winter. Winter's my favorite time of year, but even I'm getting sick of the snow, and I can't wait to see one of these. And every time I see it, I'm reminded of what the rainbow actually stands for in our lives. After chaos and after craziness, death and destruction, when Noah emerges from the ark and gives the offering, the burnt offering unto the Lord, this was the promise made to all mankind. Out of the American Standard Version, I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I hope you guys are warm and safe. I really hope that we can get to warmer times, and eventually the next time we get to see a rainbow, all right? Next time you look up and see a rainbow in the sky, take all in its beauty and the scientific facts of how a rainbow is formed, but also remember that science proves a creator in creation. Love you all. God bless, and take care.